Hello, hello. Welcome to Lunch and Learn. We're going to take just another moment before we get started. I believe you can all hear me now. My name is Gregory Goldston, taking over the Lunch and Learn for Wednesday, October 16th. Quick reminder, we got some pretty nifty stuff in our marketplace. You can scan this QR code right here and take a look at some of these customer project builds and try them out. Play them around with them yourselves. All right. All right. I think we are good to get started. Does anyone have any questions that we can address? All right. I have a question about data repeater behavior and integrations. Ran across a possible bug. All right. Let's start with you, James. We'll go with the data repeater behavior and integrations. Let me unmute you so that you can share with us a little bit more about what you are trying to ask.
Sure. So I've been messing around with data repeaters and um, I had a couple of questions about them. Number one, I have a couple of data repeaters on one form I was creating. And when I tried to add multiple add remove buttons, like one for each of the data repeaters, it
Hmm.
seemed like the drop downs would only let me add one of those add or remove buttons. In other words, it didn't recognize the other one, even though they were there.
Hmm. Interesting. Here, let me
I don't know if that's a bug or if that's behavior that's expected or
Are they
that's
all
a
named
very
the
good
same?
question.
on the form, yes.
They're all
Like
named
the,
like the name property on it's all named the same?
there are two
So,
different data repeaters, so they're all named different.
well, right, but you know how like in the data repeater, Gregory, if you could share your screen, open up
Yeah.
a local.
Absolutely.
Um, because if you can have the data repeater add buttons, but I don't think the name property actually changes, even though you
Yeah, I
may change the
changed the name.
text on it.
Yeah, I changed the name.
Oh, okay. So those are changed? Okay.
Yeah. So they're two totally different sets of buttons, and two totally separate data repeaters. It's just when you do the drop down, associate the button with the repeater.
Mm-hmm.
It only allows me one of them, not both. Like if there's two add buttons, it only allows me to one for both repeaters, not just for one.
Okay. So let's just create a quick data repeater. Or and then just add two on there.
Got it. So let's take a look here at our forms. Actually, I think we need to create data types first. Our data repeater.
You can just use the accounts type
Sounds good.
so you don't have to create an extra data type.
That makes sense. All right. Let's jump into here and see if we can recreate that behavior. Now let's check out our data repeater. So we'll get one grid. We'll set it over here.
Mhm.
We'll just create a new one. This will be repeater one.
For brevity, I don't think you need to create the data repeater, Greg. I think all you need to do is just add two data repeater controls on the form, and then add two add buttons and two remove buttons.
Gotcha. All
Because
right.
it's just interfacing with the property on the input data to the right.
That makes sense. We'll just call this data name repeater 2. I'll call this one repeater 1. And now this one has the name data repeater. This one has the name data repeater 1. And now we're going to add some buttons. So data repeater add button. And this one is text add data. And we've got
And
data
so, James,
repeater
you said you changed
button.
the name property here, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So not just
Yeah.
the text, gotcha. Because I could
Right.
see that happening in the back end because we'll see it as the same control and it would control the same
Right.
things.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
All right, so now just
Hmm.
click on that one, do that, click the input data where it's like the add button.
Right. Data repeater add button one.
Yeah.
And then
Both
for
of them.
remove data, we will select whoops, my bad. Remove data repeater button
All
one.
right. Let me go back and reevaluate things because that wasn't happening in my situation.
Gotcha.
So I've got it up right here. All right. So anyway, and I won't waste your time anymore on that. That seems to be working for you. So maybe it's something I did.
Oh no, you're
I mean,
good.
well, it could be that version. Like what version? I think what version are we on this one? 9.3.
Yep, we're on 9.3.
So we're on the
Okay. I'm
latest
on
version of
nine.
9.
I'm on
Okay.
9.2. So I'll check that out and make sure that's, I didn't do something fundamentally wrong there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll upgrade. I plan on upgrading either this weekend or next
Okay.
anyway. So we
Cool,
can see
cool.
if that's. Another question I have is when you do a remove, it seemed to me the behavior on the remove was it would remove it on the page, but then if I immediately went back into that flow and selected the data items, and I did a save entities after that. Okay, I took everything and saved it. Um, and then if I just go back into that flow and do another fetch and into the data repeater and bring it up again, that entry's still there. Is there something you need to do to specifically remove it from that entity? Is it
Let's
not
see.
deleting it behind the scenes completely, or is it still on the entity?
I don't understand. Can you clarify the situation? I don't follow.
Okay. Um, so I've got the data repeaters set up similar to this. And let's say in the left-hand one there,
Hmm.
I had a bunch of data there. And I clicked on a row and I said remove data. And it removed it on the screen.
Okay.
And then and then the next step in my flow after I hit the done button was to save entities. And I saved that entity that is on the left-hand side there. So I
Hmm.
saved it as is. And I would assume that would save it with the entry gone that I removed, right? Or do I have to do something else?
So let me see if I understood. So basically, you have a data repeater. Let's say the data repeater we have to the left has like data, like the three admin
Hmm.
accounts, system admin, blah blah blah, right? Three admin
Hmm.
accounts. I remove admin, and
Hmm.
then I progress the form by clicking on the button on the bottom right. And
Right.
then in the output, you still see three accounts instead of two.
Yes.
Okay.
And then when I
Let's.
did save entities, it's because when I do the save entity, it's still there. And
Hmm.
then when I do because I'm doing a fetch entity just to fill the repeater to begin with,
Okay.
right?
On the data repeater, Gregory, can you just connect it to the accounts data source and just have a label that takes a data name of email address?
Absolutely.
And then just, then in the flow, we can fetch all this. Uh,
I don't know why I'm not finding it.
right there to the left. Edit source right there. Yeah. And then just grab a label right there in the favorites.
Why am I? Ah, there we go.
There you go. And
I never
then go to,
just.
yeah, no worries. And then go to data name. Check that on the top, text from data name. And then just say email. And then click over here, input type to account.
There we go. That's what I'm looking for. The input type following it.
Yep. And then you have to go back to that. You have to, no, we're not done yet. You have to go back to that thing and you have to set that pick from data.
And then account email. I got you.
Yep. Perfect. And then we can add this to a flow, fetch it, and then we can see if we can recreate that scenario.
Okay, looks good. And then I'll just delete this one for clarity's sake. Grab that, create a flow. We'll call it display accounts. Let's get our fetch entity step rolling here. Type account. And we want all of them. We'll pass it into our form. List of accounts from entity result, pass those in. And then this repeater that I spelled horribly wrong. That's what's going to be output from the list of accounts that you would be saving to those entities. My
Oh,
thought is,
okay. I think that's what
yeah,
I was doing wrong. I'm saving the entity instead of saving the file.
yeah, it's not
I thought
editing
it would be
the
something
input
like that.
type. It's
Mm,
just going to output whatever's being sent here, and that might be where
right,
that issue's occurring.
right. I'm not saving the correct data. That's what it was.
And then we can just debug this, see what this looks like. And yeah, here we go. Now we have all the accounts.
Gotcha. Yep. Yeah. Okay. I see what I was doing wrong. I had one more question about integrations. When you do an integration and you are linking back into your, like say a form um, through a URL, does Decisions capture the URL you're coming from when you link into it? In other
From
words,
a form?
from anything, a flow. I'm sorry, it's really to kick off a flow that displays a form. So I have an integration that I give them a link and you know, they link back into decisions from wherever they are, and it displays a form. They enter the data, and away it goes.
Okay.
Um, is there a way I can tell what URL they're coming from because they're linking from another place, or if they came from a URL, if they came from an email, whatever the source was, does it capture that?
Hmm. My first thought goes to capturing statistics from a post-to-flow handler's behavior. I'm not certain if that gets captured, but let's try and make one and see if we can get that rolling. It'd be under advanced, post-to-flow handler. You'll notice this one doesn't have any input data. It has its own separate data that's intrinsic to this flow type. You have the call data, which shows stuff that's being passed out. We can get request headers here that are passed from the call. So let's
This
see
is a
what
specific
exactly
type
we
of,
can
I'm
grab.
sorry, this is a specific type of flow that you're creating here?
It
Post the
is.
flow handler. Oh, okay. Is this a
Mhm.
regular flow outside of this? It just brings in different variables?
Right. I guess, what do you mean by regular flow here? Can I get
I
some
mean,
clarity?
I can do anything with, I mean, if I want to use this, does it have the integrations that I can call this?
Oh, yes,
So that I can,
absolutely. Yeah,
okay.
that's same way as before.
Yeah. It's
The
just
only
capturing extra data. Is that what it's doing?
Right. It's designed to handle things a little bit differently. Pardon me for just a moment. I think I messed up on this.
So to clarify that one specifically, James, it's like think of it as like you're calling Salesforce or some other external system, and the data you come back that comes back to you
Hmm.
is unstructured. And you want a flow to kind of take that raw data and then format
Mm.
in the way you need to format before sending it out to another process. So that's kind of the use case how that one's um, works here. I don't. We can test this offline, but I don't
Uh,
think we know. And I can ask some devs internally. I don't think we know how someone initiated it. That link,
okay.
like someone was in an email and they clicked on it, or someone was in a form and they clicked
Yeah, I
on
was
it.
just
I don't
wondering
know
if there
if
was,
we have that
yeah,
tracking, and that's what
yeah.
you're looking for, right?
Yeah, I'm just kind of looking for any information that would clue me in. What is provided to decisions when somebody clicks on a link outside of
Sure.
decisions and calls a flow? What information is provided? Is there anything I can do with that? Because at the end of the day, what I would like to be able to do, if they clicked in from like say the PeopleSoft system, our ERP system from a
Mm-hmm.
certain page or like a link on that page, I'd like
Sure.
to be able to send them back to
Sure.
that exact link. So the only way I'd be able to do that is to know where they came from.
Of course. Yeah, we'll sync well we got your email, so we'll ask internally and then we'll send you
Okay.
something if we find that we have that information or how we would get that information if we do have it.
All right.
So,
No
yeah.
problem. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks a lot. That's all I have.
Cool.
All right. Appreciate the questions. All right. Where are we? There was another question I just had, and now I can't seem to find it. Um, Marvin, you were asking, or mentioning you ran across a possible bug in the forms. Could you give us a little bit more clarity on what you mean. Here, I'll unmute you so that you can do that. Let's see where. Here we go. All right. Could you
Sure.
give us a little bit more clarity?
Can the easiest way to test this is can you find just any um uh my brain just went blank. Form. Yeah, just go ahead and go into that. Anything that has a form that has a active form flow tied to it,
Okay.
whenever, yeah, just create some generic real quick, like this is the
I
easy
messed up.
way to test. Yeah.
All right. And you said it has an active form flow.
Yes,
Okay.
this is how I ran across it.
All
And
right.
we're, as James said, we're in 9.2.
Okay. What were we doing in this?
All right, just go ahead and create it. It can be blank inside there. It doesn't matter.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right, now go back out to the forms list.
All right.
All right, up in the folder view,
Mm-hmm.
change the, yeah, click that. And then the three vertical dots.
You want to show the hidden entities, right?
Yes, if you show it, all right, in 9.2, you do not get the things that are in the false section.
You don't
I'm
see.
not. Yeah, the only thing I get from the results is just the hidden items. But if I checked it against all the other reports, they seem to be fine. But just that one with the hidden, it only shows the items that are marked true.
Interesting. So you don't see this anything under a false category at
Exactly.
all. Hmm.
Exactly. But it
That's
looks like it's
very
working for
interesting.
you in 9.3. So, and if we're going to 9.3, a week or two, at least for us, it won't matter, but just for whatever that might be worth.
Interesting. I can look into that as well and off call try to debug and see if we can recreate this issue on our end. I have
Okay.
not heard of that before.
Well, I just happened to run across it this morning. I was piddling with an active form flow, and I said, oh, wait a minute, where's my other stuff?
Hmm.
So
Interesting.
I had some other questions, but I think I got them clarified. But before we got here, so I want to hold off for asking any more questions for now. So I think I'm done.
All right. Well, you got it. I'll definitely take a look into that and thank you for pointing that out.
Sure.
All right. Next, I see in the chat is Elon. You're asking, how can I save or create a new record in a SQL table? A connection between my SQL DB has already been established via external database connection. I've added parameterized queries to be able to fetch and update an existing record in a table, but how do I save a new record in the table? Ah, okay. So this is getting a little bit more into SQL terminology, but we can definitely show you how you would do something like that. So let's go to Manage, Integrations, and go to Databases, and we're just going to use our local connection right here for this. Or sorry, I apologize. I went to the wrong area. We are going to go to Data Structures, create a type. We're going to go to Database Integration. And if you are trying to add uh, a record manually, perhaps running a query might be your best bet. So we're going to go to add query. I'm just going to use the local connection for this, our decisions table. So the queries that I'm assuming that you're running are something similar to a select query to pull everything from that table with maybe some parameters to follow. Also, let me unmute you real quick so you can provide any more context that we need for this. I'm trying to unmute you. Give me a moment. There you go. All right. So if I were to do this, select all from entity account and then run it, we get all the accounts. And your question is asking how can you insert another record into this table, correct?
Right. I want to be able to use data that I'm getting from a flow and then add that record into the SQL table. But
Hmm.
I don't know, I'm not sure if I'm not doing my query correctly, but when I do it in SQL, it works. But when I try to add it in here, it doesn't let me. And I'm not sure if you're just not able to save a new record in SQL.
Ah, okay. So when you say it's not letting you, are you getting an error or are you just not seeing anything get updated?
I'm getting an error.
Oh, what error are you getting?
Are you trying
And
to create like an insert? Are you using like an insert value or insert into table query?
Yes.
So if you just want to write a table, like or write another record in a table in decisions, you won't need to use an insert query. Gregory, if you can just close this, um, and then create a connection like you did before, not that way, but actually in the other way you were doing.
okay.
So manage, and I know you already did this. We're just doing this so that we can kind of demonstrate the feature that you're kind of requesting here. Just call it whatever. It's going to be into your own local connection.
All right. And then database name. I don't recall which database this is off the top of my head.
You
Let
can
me
find
take
out by using the user account thing.
user count.
Yeah, on the top right where you have the user guy icon, you can click on that
Oh,
and it
oh,
will tell
right.
you the
Yeah, yeah.
database, and then you can just add in that database there. So you're on database decision 9.2. So you
Cool.
can integrate with that one.
You got it. And then we'll just use SQL Server auth, test it. We can hit it. That's fine. Hit OK.
Perfect.
All
Now go
right.
ahead and add a table. I'm pretty sure you already done this. If you haven't, go ahead and do entity underscore accounts. Just do the accounts table. So what we're doing here is if you do create the connection, just verify that you've selected the table that you want, which sounds like you've already done. And then you should just have to make sure that you select a key. And then all the way on the right, you see how it gives you the get all, the count, get by ID, exist, insert, update, insert, or update and delete. So once you do that table integration into that database, then you get access to those flow steps where you can then write records into it without having to actually write a insert query into it. So once this goes, go in your flows, and where you find it in the flows is if you go to I think it's integration. We have
It
two
is.
database locations. It's not the first one up top, it's the integrations. And then whatever you name that connection, I think you called it local or something. Oh, perfect. And then move it to the right. See how you have the entity underscore account table? Expand that. And then you'll have access to the insert into entity underscore account. And that's the step that will allow you to write a record into an external connection.
I see. Okay. I don't have admin access, so I can't see if that's checked, but I can ask the person who created it to see if that is. Thank you.
Yes, that DB account would just have to have, what is it, writer permissions, I think, if I remember my database terminology. And
Right.
it's going to be the service account that runs decisions would
Right.
have to have
Okay.
that. Mhm.
Okay. Thank you.
My pleasure.
All right. Um, I believe that's all the questions I'm currently seeing at the moment. Does anyone else have another question that we can answer on here for you? I'll give it just a moment to see if anyone else has anything further. Ah, the Chaco. How can we assist? And let me unmute you. So you can put your question there. That'd be fantastic. And pardon me, I'm trying to unmute you. There you go.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Great. Um, yeah, I mean, I was working with who am I speaking to here?
Gregory, this is Gregory you're
Gregory.
talking to.
Okay. Um, I was working before, and I have a very unique problem where I was trying to get some option buttons to change a checkbox, and all of the option buttons seem to be linked together. Yet the names of the option buttons, uh, radio buttons, are all different. So I'm not sure why that's happening. I thought it might be a bug. Um,
Okay, so you're talking about the radio buttons specifically, or
yeah,
the? All right. Okay, so we got a list of buttons on here, and then we'll just call this.
put A and B is whatever.
Yep. And then was this a list of string that you were using?
Actually, I used list items, and hang on, let me see if I can pull it up.
Hmm.
I
Then once I get
used
that up, we'll go over
I
exactly what.
used input data as a static list item, and I added one-sided and two-sided.
Oh, okay, I gotcha.
You can put, yeah, that's perfect right there.
Okay,
And then there was a checkbox.
okay.
I'm gonna record this if you don't mind.
Don't mind at all. This is already being recorded, but feel free. All
And
right.
yep, a checkbox. Yep, yep. And then the idea is that if you um, actually just A is good. You don't need B and C.
Okay.
So the idea was if you press one, A should be checked.
Okay.
So I set up uh, a flow, form flow, I think it's called.
Yep, an active form flow.
Yep. I set that up.
All right, and we'll call this check A. And what you're trying to do is when you click on one, it will check A, right?
No, when I click on A, it'll check one.
Okay. So I'll just make it a little bit clearer with the get control values. So for demonstration purposes, people can see where we're getting this from. So the form control that I want to get data from is the checkbox list, right? And I want the
Mhm.
selected item.
Right.
And I'll go with first because there's only one in this list, right? Oh, I'm sorry. I selected this wrong. Let me get the form control data first. And now there's a list of selected items that outputs, right? Because in the checkbox, you can check multiple different options. So it has to pass it out as a list for each option
No,
that you could check.
the option button should have multiple, the radio button should have multiple options. The checkbox should be just one.
Right. The checkbox, there is only one in the configuration that we have set up, but it has to pass it out as a list of string because being a checkbox control, you can check multiple items. So this has to account for those multiple items. This
I
list
see.
is only going to have one item, which is going to be A, but it has to take into account that it could have more.
I see.
Did that answer your question?
I didn't see it work. I mean, I'm trying to
Oh,
actually
sorry.
watch it work.
Oh, absolutely. My bad. Here, let's finish the process. So let's get a rule, right? Something that's going to determine whether it is checked or not. I'll just create a new one. And we want to define the input data. And I'm just going to have it be a string because we only want that one particular selected item, right? And we know for this use case, there's only one. So I'll call this, I'll just call it checkbox A. And this is going to determine whether it exists or not, right? So checkbox A. Hmm. We might need to pass in something else because we might need to actually pass in the Boolean for whether it's checked or not. Oh, no, no, it just show up in the selected items list, right? This is a selected item. So, um, I'll just put equals case insensitive A. All right. And now if it equals A, it returns true. And if it does not equal A, it returns false, which are only two options for this setup. So if it does return A, we want to be able to change the other one. So we're going to use set control value, right? And
Mhm.
we're going to pick from our form data the list of buttons. And that should let us pick the selected item from that list, which will be a constant. And we will just make that 1. And then if we want to not select it, right? If that A button is not checked, for this case, it's just not going to check anything, which is okay at the moment. Checkbox A is coming from our selected item and just the first because it's a list of string being passed in, but there's only one in this list of string here. So let's save that. Hit OK. Oh, and there's one more thing that we need to configure on this that I just missed. We have to make sure that this active form flow runs when something's actually checked, right? So whenever selection changes, we want to run
Right,
this.
right.
All right. So let's hit save on this. And now we will go to a flow, and this will be, I'll call it the checkbox flow.
Yep.
Throw it in here, show form,
Form.
pick from the one we just made, pass it in. We don't need anything pre-selected here, so I'm just going to ignore these. And now let's debug it. So we got options 1, 2, 3. Selecting 3 shouldn't do anything. Selecting 2 shouldn't do anything. Selecting 1 shouldn't do anything. But as soon as I hit A, it's going to select 1 for us.
I actually wanted the opposite was what I was trying to get. When you select an option button, 1, 2, or 3, it checks A. That was where I was
Oh,
trying to get to.
oh, gotcha. Well, we can switch that around real quick. That's a pretty easy fix. Let's go edit this. So we only want to select A when 1 is selected.
Any one of 1, 2, or 3 selected, A will be selected.
Ah, okay. So the point is that it's just any of them are selected, 1, 2, or 3. Okay. Well, there are different ways to do this. Let's go back into this. Our statement rule is going to do something else. First, we want the control value not from the checkboxes, but from the radio box, right? Because this is the one that we're going to look at, the form control and the selected item. That selected item will get passed into our rule, which is only going to be 1 because in our radio buttons, we can only select 1. So our
Right.
selected item should now be a single string, not a list. Let's go in here. We're going to change our logic. Checkbox A equals. And instead of equals, I'm going to do something else that gives us a little bit more leeway with how we want to do this. So I'm going to say is in list. For my list, I'm going to put 1, 2, and 3. And why you can do this, or why you may want to do this, is say that you want to expand those buttons later, those option buttons, and have some of
Mhm.
them not check that checkbox in the future. You can just alter which items in the list are going to get read as being checked. So we'll save that. And now, if any of those exist, we're going to set the control value not of the radio buttons, but of the checkbox list. And that list of string, the only one that we are going to set is A. Additionally, if we want to add a little bit more logic to this, this is for sake of example. Let's say we wanted to uncheck it if any of those were unchecked. Actually, I guess that wouldn't really help in our case because a button's always going to be checked once you actually
Well,
select it.
if let's say you chose a radio button and it checked the checkbox.
Hmm.
Let's say if you also unchecked the checkbox, all three radio buttons should not be have a value, right? Because if you're unselecting one, in other words, the checkbox and the radio buttons are tied together in the same fashion.
Okay.
One can't exist without the other, but if the checkbox gets removed, then so should the options 1, 2, and 3 get removed.
Mm. Then for architecture purposes, I would recommend making a separate active form flow for that. One that runs one way and one that runs the other way, so they both operate on different triggers. That way you're not triggering the same flow multiple times from doing, just either one of these when you only need it to go one way. It's a little bit more performant that way. So instead of
Hmm.
the checkbox list, we're going to do list of buttons for this one. We'll hit OK. We'll hit save on that. And now, if I debug this, if I select any one of these, A is going to get checked. Doesn't matter which one. I'll go back and debug that again. If I select three, A is going to get selected. And what you're talking about is that for option one here, I'll show the last one. When you uncheck A, you want all these to get unchecked.
Exactly.
Okay. That would be probably a separate form flow that we'll create to do that. One to run one way and one to run the other way. So I'm just going to
Yeah,
add a new one.
create another one. Right.
Yeah, so this one I'm going to say check number. And we are going to run this on the trigger for the checkbox, right? We want this to activate when we change what's in our checkbox manually.
Correct.
Yep, so we're going to go in here. We're going to use another one of those get control values. And this time we will select it from A. So form data, checkbox list, and then the selected item. Okay, so now here's how we're going to do this. I think this will work. We're going to run another rule. We're going to create a new one. We're going to set up our thing here. And again, there should only be one here. So we're just going to call this check num. And now, if that check number equals A, we'll return true. So if it equals A, we don't want anything to happen, right? We don't want to trigger this flow. We don't want anything to go through. If it does not equal A, if A has been unchecked, then we want to edit what the selected item is for that checkbox. In fact, we want to actually clear the selected item. So we'll go into get control value. Oh, sorry, not get control value. My bad. Set control value. We'll pick from our form data, the radio buttons, and then the selected item. We don't want it to be anything, right? So I'm going to hit null. And then from here, we'll pass our check number from our selected item, the first one, because there's only one in this list. And now let's test and see if this operates how we're expecting it to. So go into debug. I'll select one, A gets selected. I uncheck A, it unchecks all those.
That's what I need. How do I get to your level?
Oh man, just practice, man. I mean, like
Just keep
I'm.
going, right? Just keep going.
No,
You
it's
obviously
absolutely
have
something you
it
can set up.
down to a science. Okay, this is good though. This is exactly what I was trying to do. It's a lot of steps. Boy, it's a lot more steps than and then my form is fairly complex. Like I have one, two, three, four, five, six sections where these radio buttons are. So for each one of these radio buttons, there's a checkbox. So this could get kind of thick
Hmm.
pretty quick. But I
Then
think,
what I was gonna say one thing you might be able to do, which I'm gonna check for more questions before I try to go into examples because Smith has a question. But
yep.
one thing you might be able to do is in this active form flow right here that's running the rule, instead of having a single statement rule that go branches to like one path, you could have different outcomes based upon what is being read, or you could use a truth table here that matches what your input is and then what you want to pass out to change with multiple set
Hmm.
control values.
Hmm.
Or just assign it dynamically. It would just be you can have the truth table come out as one path. But that would be one way that you can make that more scalable.
Okay, yeah, because it seems to be kind of cumbersome just doing each one of these individually.
Well, once you've got one, you can just save it as a template and, just change the variables.
That's true too.
Yeah. But yeah. All right. You didn't have anything further with that at the moment. I'm going to move to Smith's question, which is in an advanced control grid, there is an option to add and remove button. How can I link this to a form? And in a form, how can I connect the submit button to run a query? Ooh, all right. Let's take a look here. So let me unmute you just so we can get clarity on this ask real quick. All right, you should be able to talk now.
Sure. In an advanced data grid, right? I can pick data from a query and display and things like that. What I was trying to do is I saw that there is an option to add some buttons there, I think, for the inputs. If we go and add that thing. So I was wondering how I can link that to a form.
So let me see which buttons you're talking about. You mean a
Okay.
button in here?
When if we click on the in data grid itself, I think it asked me as input or something like that, and I was able to choose that. Yes, somewhere I think.
I'll just do a count type here for,
Yeah.
example's sake. So you hit show actions or no?
No, I don't know where actually I saw it, but I was able to add two buttons. It came up as an option. Let me tell you what. Yes, input data. I can see if you go just below that thing, input data, not there.
Oh, I
It displays
apologize.
add button. Yeah,
I
that one.
see. So once we have different select modes that are more than just info only, you have different add and remove buttons.
Right, right, right.
Okay. I see. So let's see here. Those add buttons are probably going to get populated from the add data grid button controls. Let me just confirm because I think this form control will recognize that these are added to the form. So I go to the add button, there we go, and then
Yes.
dynamic remove button.
So how can I, if when I click on that, when we run this form, right, it displays that wherever we put it. But how can I want something to happen. When they click on an ad, I want another form to open up. So how can I do that?
You want another form to open up when they click on
Click,
the add button?
correct.
Hmm. The only way you would be able to have another form pop up inside of a form is with a sub dialog button.
Okay.
Yep. So that wouldn't be actually connected to the data grid anymore. I can pull
Oh,
that.
okay.
Yep. So you can make this sub dialog
Mm-hmm.
button, which, runs a flow. I'll just create a new one here.
Make sure you show the sub dialog rule flow, not the old way.
Oh, whoops. Yeah, I unchecked legacy, didn't I? Whoops. My bad.
No
Let's,
worries. Uncheck. Yeah, there you
there
go.
we go. All right. So here is where you would input all of your logic after showing and displaying that form. And then you could refresh that report in a way. So let's say that you're going to show a form here that shows what you're pulling in from there. And I'll just use a fetch entities to get everything. And we're going to be fetching it twice. So fetch entities, I'm just going to pass both of them here. We'll go with account. Just really easy to do account. And then we'll output all those results on this form here. Well, let's pick or create one. Let's create a new form. Let's call it that. Why not? And then we can display that on a data grid here. I think advanced data grid might allow us to select an item. Let me confirm that. All right, just to show that it's in here. And then I'll add a button to this real quick. before I continue with this, I'm just going to go outside of this form and map in our inputs here. So we want a list of accounts. That's our entity results. We're going to pass those in. Let's edit the form. Okay, so this advanced data grid should display those results in this form, right? And then we want to be able to select an item, and I'm going to call the output data name selected account. It has occurred to me I do not need the fetch entity step for this if we're doing the... Oh, no, no, no. Yeah, we got it. We got it. So we want the account ID. Actually, let's do something a little easier. Something a little bit more readable. Let's go with the email address and we'll put the created on date. We'll save that. All right. So that should display our list of accounts. We can select one, proceed, and then that's going to be an output, right? So our goal is if you wanted to remove, or let me just make sure I understand your goal correctly. You want someone to be able to select something and then remove something from that list, or to
Uh,
display a form to do something else?
what I was hoping is once it displays the form, I didn't know about that sub thing which you taught. Thank you. So once they display this form, right, we can on this form itself, I can have or on that form, I can have a click OK button or submit buttons. If they can click on OK, it should call a query based on whatever they enter. I can have some input text fields, blah blah blah. Here you're displaying, which is fine. I can put any input boxes. Basically, they need to input something, and I click on OK. It should connect to the database and update, insert or update based on the query. That's what I'm trying to achieve.
And do you want this to display per each data row?
Not necessarily. This is just for the form in general, like a form like how we have done the add button so that it displays once they input the data. It's for single row. They cannot input multiple. So it need not be for every row.
Okay. I think I understand the ask. So you just want a form to be able to display where they can execute it and then it will run the query. I'm just going to use this for sake of example.
Mhm.
So you would process that query to the database here, pick the connection that you're trying to put it to, put in your query, or you could use one of the ones that we created earlier, was showing earlier in, pardon me.
If I want this query to run on the OK button or something like that, how can I associate that button to this query? That was the next part of the question.
That would need to be in the form. When you say the OK button, do you mean the OK button in the form inside of the form or in the
Inside the
main
form,
form? Oh,
inside the
okay.
form, any
Yeah,
form.
yeah, yeah. Then you would just pass it out after what I was showing you before. I'll go back into this form here. So here's the sub dialog button, right? When they
Hmm.
click on this, it will display a form on this screen here.
Correct.
Yep. And then once they display that form, when they click OK on this form right here, or in this
Yeah.
case proceed, then it will finish out the flow, right? And you can have
Oh,
a query at the end of this.
okay, got it. Okay. Okay.
Is there any more clarity that I can add to that?
No, I'm good. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Did we have any further questions for today? I'm not seeing anything show up in the Q&A. And then nothing in the chat. Well, for the last few minutes, I can kind of go over what I'm doing, and if anyone wants to jump in with a question during that time, I would be glad to assist. So, something I've been working on recently, and we'll have a video coming out for this soon, is I am working on a video regarding decisions flow behaviors. So kind of like the post to flow handler stuff, there's a variety of different kinds of flows in decisions that have very unique behaviors that affect what their inputs and outputs can be, what context you can use them in a flow, what where they're visible in the designer editor or not. And it's kind of funny that we actually covered two of these today. Like the active form flows one, we had to go into folder view, change, and then show folder items with hidden, and then we could see any of the rule flows that we created. Additionally, another type of flow that a flow behavior I'll just go over right now is a simple tiles flow behavior. So if I go to a page and I put in a simple tile, I would need to pick or create a flow to use this. And I'm going to create a new one. It's going to be called a tile source flow. And when I create this, outside of having this step that automatically outputs tile data based upon what lines you put in here, your end step is designed to take tile data. This is a default output that's configured for this type of flow behavior. So it's very interesting getting to work with those, test those in decisions, and just explore around how different flows, and flow behaviors can affect how they run, even if the steps inside of them are identical. All right. Did, let's see. Not seeing any further questions show up right now. So I might end this meeting then if no one's got anything further. Going once, going twice. All right. Well, thank you all for coming. We really appreciate your time and your investment into this decisions application. We'll be looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. Have a good day, y'all.